So, how do breakthroughs actually happen? We all see that final moment of success, right? The big win. But what we don't see is the real story. All the struggle, the feeling of being completely stuck, and most importantly, the secret to breaking free.
And take Academy Award winner Brie Larson, for example. I mean, she's had this incredible, massive success, but she's also been super open about her journey, a path that for decades was just jam-packed with frustration and what she says felt like constant failure.
You know that feeling, right? It feels like success just looks so easy for other people. We see the victory lap, the shiny award, the massive company, but we almost never see the years and years of struggle and all the dead ends that came first.
All right, so let's just start by tearing down this whole myth of the easy path. Because here's the thing, it turns out our own brains are basically wired to trick us. We see our own journey as uniquely hard, while we assume everyone else is just cruising.
Yeah, psychologists actually have a name for this. It's called the headwinds/tailwinds bias. Think about it. We feel our own struggles, those are the headwinds blowing right in our face so intensely, but we're just awful at noticing the invisible forces helping other people along, the tailwinds, or even the hidden struggles they're dealing with too.
And to put that headwind into perspective, just look at this number, 99%. Let that sink in for a second. That's how often Brie Larson figures she was told no over her career. We're talking about one of the most celebrated actors in the world, and she was getting rejected 99% of the time. Wow. And look, she is not the exception here, not by a long shot. Jeff Bezos was literally packing boxes himself during those early Amazon Christmases. The founders of Airbnb, they were so broke they started out by renting air mattresses on their living room floor. So feeling stuck, that's not a sign you're failing. It's a sign you're actually on the right path.
Okay, so if getting stuck is totally normal, then why does it feel so impossible to get unstuck? Well, a lot of the time it's because our own minds fall into these really subtle but powerful cognitive traps that just keep us spinning our wheels.
And this first one is a biggie. It's this idea that if our first attempt isn't brilliant, then we've got nothing left. We feel like we're just falling off this creative cliff, And so we give up, convinced our well of ideas has totally run dry.
But here's the thing. Research on something called the serial order effect shows the exact opposite is true. Our brains are designed to serve up the most obvious, easy ideas first. Your most unique, most creative thoughts, they're actually waiting deeper inside. The real key is you gotta push past all the easy stuff.
Okay, this next trap is super sneaky. We try so hard to be original, but somehow we end up looking just like everybody else. I mean, just think about all those travel photos you see on Instagram that look bizarrely identical. Every single person thought they were capturing this totally unique moment, but they were all just part of this unintentional hurt.
And this trap is dangerous because you don't even know you're in it. You think you and your team are perfectly on the same page, but this tiny little misunderstanding slips by. And because nobody spots it, that tiny gap just sits there, and it festers, and it grows into a huge, huge problem down the line.
All right, so we've seen the traps that keep us stuck. But here's the good news. Researchers have actually identified a whole toolkit, concrete things we can all use to break ourselves free. Let's get into it.
First up, there's a tool I like to call the Messi method. Just think about the soccer legend Lionel Messi. For the first few minutes of a big game, what does he do? He doesn't sprint, he doesn't chase the ball, he just walks. He's scanning the entire field, building this mental map of the other team's weaknesses before he even thinks about making a big play.
And this perfectly shows the power of a strategic pause. By slowing down to prepare, he can act with just devastating precision when it really matters. It's this beautiful, counterintuitive strategy, right? Sometimes the fastest way to succeed is actually to start slow.
Okay, tool number 2 comes from the legendary jazz icon Miles Davis. His guitarist was on stage, just completely frozen with anxiety, and Miles leaned over and gave him this incredible piece of advice. He just said, "Play it like you don't know how to play the guitar." And that's our second tool, reframing the pressure by changing the stakes.
See, when we look at a task as this high-stakes threat, our brain just floods with anxiety and we choke. It happens. But if we can reframe it as a low-stakes challenge, like it's just an experiment, we free up all those mental resources and we let our real skills and our intuition take over.
Now, we're always taught to avoid failure at all costs, right? Well, it turns out there's actually a sweet spot for growth. Research shows that the perfect error rate for learning is right around 15%. That means, as you can see here, you should be succeeding about 85% of the time. Think about that. If your success rate is 100%,
It's a sign you're probably not pushing yourself hard enough to actually learn anything new.
And that brings us to a really critical tool, recombination. Look, breakthroughs rarely, and I mean rarely, come from some brand new out-of-the-blue invention. Way more often, they come from combining existing ideas in a new way. The Jitterbug phone is a perfect example. It just combined simple cell phone tech with the needs of older adults, a totally overlooked audience, and boom, it was a massive success.
Okay, finally, let's talk about how getting unstuck isn't just a one-time thing. It's actually part of this repeatable cycle that can trigger what scientists call hot streaks. You know, those incredible periods of peak performance we all dream of having in our careers.
The career of director Peter Jackson is a perfect case study here. He started with this long period of just broad exploration, directing all these wild experimental films in totally different genres. Then he shifted into a period of what's called exploitation, where he focused in and just honed those specific skills of special effects and world building. And that exact sequence, explore, then exploit, is what led directly to his massive hot streak with The Lord of the Rings. And get this pattern holds up across thousands of different careers. It shows that success is, well, it's lumpy. It's not spread out evenly over your life. The vast majority of your most impactful work is probably going to happen in a really concentrated burst. And that's exactly why persisting through that slower 80% of the time is so critical.
Which brings us to really the core idea of this whole explainer. That moment when you feel the most stuck, the most frustrated, that is so often the exact moment right before you have a breakthrough. That friction you're feeling, it's not a stop sign. It's a signal that you are so close.
So what if being stuck isn't the problem at all? What if it's a necessary part of the solution? If you can understand that, you can transform your own frustrating dead ends into the launching pad for your next big thing. So the only real question left is, what are you going to try next?